Over 6 years ago, we tested the XF 90mm on my beloved old T2. Well, here we are, T5 shooting now. Has it stood the test of time as we said it would in that video? This, spoiler, is one of my favorite Fujifilm lenses. So let's talk about why. Well, there it is then, 6 years or so later. I really like that. I really do. This is one of those lenses that I was so tempted to buy. And I've been tempted each year, as with a lot of Fujifilm gear. But this one, I just feel like this is still an unbeaten lens. Obviously, there's been cut price lenses that have come close. There's been lenses not so cut price that are in the ballpark, but I think it's still winning. What's still not winning is this plastic hood, but as you can see, oh, snap caps come off. For as cheap as it feels, it does the job, it lasts, it's fine. And this only fell off by accident, but snap caps are absolutely fine. Now this one's protected by UV filter, which is good practice. But, you know, these things last really well. There is weather sealing inside this, so I'll show you that. Gasket around there, and that seems to have held up really well. I'm not going to be abusing it in my tests, but, you know, that seems to be doing the absolute job. Now, the aperture ring still feels beautiful. Maybe a little bit heavy, this one. But yeah, it's still rather nice. Now the lens is 540 grams, which on the T5 isn't ideal, but if you're handling it right, not a bother at all. It's made in Japan, which will keep some of you happy, especially the traditionalists that were around from the start. 62mm filter thread is actually really handy. That fits in nicely with my travel combo of the 12 and the 75mm from Samyang, so I could even have this as a third lens, although it's closer to 75 while being a lot bigger. Anyway, 62mm, that is very nice, especially as this is basically a pro lens. Yes, it starts at f2, but with this focal length, that's never been a problem. Minimum focus distance 60 centimeters, still fun. The linear motor is one of the best that Fujifilm have had, frankly, and for such an old lens, it still performs really well, including in video mode. Now, we shot ourselves in the intro with it, which is not necessarily the usual case scenario, as it's a little bit far for shooting yourself, but does the job, not a problem. Now, the thing is, the thing still costs £949 new, so it is quite an investment. 518, 530 odd second hand though could make this a very interesting proposition even 6 years down the line. Having looked at it up close and got my hands on it again, and it being a well-worn copy that still stands up to the test of time. I say well-worn because I can see the wear, but it's still not that far off being new condition. So it's been looked after, but no doubt it has been used as intended. Yeah, definitely happy about the build and handling after all this time, give or take a couple of things. Once again, it's that classic feeling XF quality that I fell in love with all those years ago. I mean, it doesn't feel as chunky workhorse as the 80mm, and was perfectly fine shooting in tourist mode as I did in Ireland last month, and here at home in the samples you're seeing in this video. Now, the Dublin shots, I'm afraid, are a story for another day. Now, autofocus and subject detection works a treat on the modern bodies like this T5, and even the manual focus ring on this one is one of the better ones in the XF range. Some complained about the lack of OIS, which in fairness is a limiting factor using this on non-OIS bodies, but of course with the latest S, T and H bodies, zero issues. Another complaint over the years is that hood, yeah, it just doesn't fit with the feel of the rest of the body, and you know, it gets marked very easily. It's the one thing that's really showing its age on this particular copy. Weather resistance is something I'm glad was included. I didn't test it that much, to be fair. In fact, I went out of my way to shoot when it wasn't wet and grey, which if you're in the UK at the moment, you know is very tricky. Sharpness and details are excellent with this lens, even wide open. Colors are nice, contrast isn't bad, chromatic aberration is well controlled, there's no distortion, surprisingly no vignetting. Bokeh is gorgeous. Honestly, this is one of my favorite lenses for throwing out the background or the foreground, getting that pleasant depth of field. You know, it's not 35mm f1.4 or 56-1.2 magical, but it really stands up to that kind of competition. Now, I didn't plan on doing a mini review style rundown of the image quality, but really the lens produces brilliant image quality with the newer sensors. Is it worth it then all these years later? Well, as always, it depends on your budget. There's nothing out there that matches this exactly. Of course, there are much cheaper 85 f1.8 lenses that do a pretty decent job around this focal length and f-stop. But I'd say if you're a pro or an invested amateur, you wouldn't be disappointed with this lens. $949 new is a serious price for most, but used mint you can get it for around $547, at least at the time of recording. This actual lens, not the one we looked up at close before, that's another story. This one's from the used section at Wex in Birmingham. It's definitely tempting me. I mean, I'm always tempted by the used section at Wex in Birmingham, so you should go and check that out too. But yeah, this one, well, it was announced in May the 18th 2015, on May the 18th, 2015. And now all these years later, for me at least, it's still one of the best Fujifilm X series lenses out there. What do you reckon? Let us know in the comments, and I'll see you next week.